Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is great to be together, to have Shabbat together, whether in person here in the sanctuary or at home on Zoom. It's been a long, hard week in so many ways. And so here we are together to have a little Shabbat peace. Let's really be in our space. Let's really bring Shabbat in, and let's do that by setting some intention. Let's take a deep breath together and release. And with this next breath in, we'll take a deep breath in, and when we release, try to release some of the difficulty of the week. First, breathe in. And release. We're taught that there's a Shabbat spice, a smell, a taste, a feeling that can only happen on Shabbat. Try to breathe that beauty in. And release. Now that we've become a little more present, let's sing. And how appropriate is it that we're singing Hine Ma Tov, how good it is to be together. So Deb is going to lead us. Hine Ma Tov can be found on page 10.
Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tovu manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov, ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov, ya la 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 la. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad.
We continue with kindling the Shabbat lights, page 3. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu, lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat.
We continue with Kiddush on page 4. The heaven and the earth were finished in all their array. On the seventh day, God finished the work that God had been doing, and God stopped on the seventh day from all the work that God had done. And God blessed the seventh day and declared it holy, because on that day, God ceased from all the work of creation that God had done.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית. כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים. כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. לחיים.
Our opening reading this Shabbat is not found in your prayer book, nor will it be, but it might be on your screen, rather. We cannot merely pray. We cannot merely pray to God to end war, for the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace within ourselves and with our neighbor. We cannot merely pray to God to root out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly. We cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely. We cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and give hope, if we would only use our power justly. We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings, if we would only use them constructively. Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of merely pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives may be blessed. We continue with the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. You can find it on page 28. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamavorach. Baruch Adonai hamavorach leolam vaed.
Page 31. Let's read together. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, from whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. We turn to the Shema, the watchword of our faith, on page 34.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed.
Please be seated. We continue with Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha uv'chol nafshecha uv'chol meodecha ve'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 40, Michamocha. Michamocha is about freedom, and so often I teach that this is a moment to rejoice. The Israelites were free. This week I heard a beautiful teaching that not only are we celebrating freedom, we're also marking a moment of the unknown. The Israelites are celebrating freedom, but they're walking into a time of unknown. And so this is not only beautiful, it's also ultimately scary. And so it makes sense for them to take this moment to celebrate, because the future is scary. We sing together.
Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Yai la lai lai yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha neder b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Malechutecha ra'u vanecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe. Ze anu ve'amru, ze anu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Yai la lai lai yai lai 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 lai.
Hashkivenu is found on page 42. Hashkivenu is probably one of our oldest prayers that was put into our prayer book. It's written by Rav Amram, which is actually a little bit of a tongue twister, around 800. Makes sense that it's been here a long time. It's a prayer for protection, for a Sukkot Shalom. How much we need this prayer this week. How many need this prayer this week? They need a shelter of peace, a Sukkot Shalom. I think of those in Ukraine who are continuing to endure war, who are refugees, who are in Ukraine, who are fighting for Ukraine. I think of those in Uvalde, those families who are missing their loved ones, those families who are recovering from injury. They need a Sukkot Shalom. There are so many who need a shelter of peace. We sing together.
לחיים. השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, v'hamidenu shomreinu lechayim.
The Shamru is found on page 44. It's a reminder of the gift of Shabbat, that we have this sacred hour, these sacred hours to contemplate and reflect and be renewed. We sing.
Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Note. We turn to page 46 for the Amidah. The first on page 46 is almost a mantra or a little meditation to recenter us. And then page 48 is a reminder that we stand upon the shoulders of our forefathers and foremothers. Page 50 is a reminder of God's greatness. Page 52 is the sanctity of the day. We will chant straight through pages 46, 48, 50, and 52. Please rise in body or in spirit.
Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Chaste Avot Ve'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Umoshia Umagen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor la'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah, Rav lehoshia. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim ve'rofeh cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayim emunato, Lishenei afar, Micha mocha ba'al gevurot, Umido melach, Melech memit, Umechaye, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah lehachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, ukedoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Please be seated. Page 60. In a moment, we'll sing Shalom Rav. Shalom Rav is a prayer asking for great peace. On the screen, you have a beautiful poem by Yehuda Amichai, a poem about peace. Don't stop after beating the swords into plowshares. Don't stop. Go on beating and make musical instruments out of them. Whoever wants to make war again will have to beat them into plowshares first. We sing Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Ki ata hu melech Adon, Lechol hashalom, ki ata hu melech Adon, Lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et amcha Yisrael, bechol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, Tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha, tasim leolam, tasim leolam, tasim leolam.
Prayer for healing is a time for us to lift up the names of those whom we love who are struggling, and to recognize those in the world who are in need of a prayer for healing for body, a prayer for healing for prayer for healing for their spirits as well. And so I want to begin by lifting up a prayer for healing for those this week in Uvalde, and ask if there are those who are in need of healing in our congregation, whether it be a healing of physical body, mental health, spiritual struggle, any kind of difficulty. As my hand passes over the congregation, I hope you'll share aloud the names of loved ones, just as I hope those on Zoom will put into the chat names of loved ones.
Michael, Jane, and Tom.
Lee. The healing prayer can be found on page 253. If you need the words, we join in healing song.
A blessing, and let us say Amen. Yisheberach imotenu makor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
A moment for silent prayer and reflection.
Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Imru, Amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom. Shalom Aleinu ve'al Kol Yisrael.
In front of our street sign here on Chagrin Boulevard, called the Tree Lawn, which, by the way, I did not know that phrase until I moved to Cleveland. In front of the Tree Lawn on Chagrin Boulevard are 21 empty chairs. 21 vacant chairs. Those chairs tell an entire story. 21 chairs that will forever be empty. What would be happening? What stories might be unfolding if those chairs had remained filled? Would Eliahana have won the softball game she was supposed to play in that day? Would Irma, a fourth grade teacher who died protecting her students, have known that her husband was going to have a heart attack on Thursday? What would Uzziah have asked to do with his father when he picked him up that day? The stories continue. Our rabbis teach, whoever destroys a soul, it is considered as if they destroyed an entire world. So 21 lives were destroyed and countless worlds were destroyed. And friends, that verse concludes, and whoever saves a life, it is considered as if they saved an entire world. In the last 2 weeks, we've witnessed the two deadliest mass shootings of the year so far, which have both been committed by 18-year-olds using semi-automatic firearms. The Gun Violence Archive, an independent data collection organization, reports 213 mass shootings so far this year. There are 44 candles that we lit as we walked in the foyer. 44 yahrzeit candles lit for the 44 people who have died in mass shootings just since May 14th. Just since the shooting at the Tops supermarket in Buffalo. And what have we done? For more than 20 years since the Columbine shooting in 1999, the solution to mass shootings in schools has been to put the responsibility on the students and the teachers. We've taught them to shelter in place, asked that they practice active shooter drills. Many of the survivors of the Columbine shooting are now themselves parents. This repeated trauma is agonizing. Students at Shaker Heights High School organized a walkout on Thursday. They offered support to those who are grieving in Uvalde. They protested the guns. In 2018, the students at Woodbury Elementary in Shaker Heights staged a walkout to protest gun violence after the shooting at Parkland High School. These are the same students that organized the protest on Thursday at the high school. Some of them used the same signs. They voiced the same demands. They held the same fears. No more hate, for school to be safe, not to be scared. For more than 20 years, in essence, the responses to shooting violence has been to harden, to add security, and to offer, quote, our thoughts and prayers are with you. Sympathy and prayer is needed. Our love and attention matters. It makes an emotional difference, but it doesn't prevent the next shooting. So many of us believe in and have been working towards gun violence reduction for years. We've marched, written letters, made phone calls, and testified. And instead, Ohio, like an increasing number of states, has passed laws making it easier to own and carry a gun. For example, starting June 13th, constitutional carry, as it is known, will go into effect, which makes it legal for non-felons in Ohio, 21 and older, to carry a concealed handgun without a permit. Gun show loopholes abound. There are no criminal background checks at gun shows, and there are no limits on purchases. Notably, assault weapons like those used in Uvalde and in Buffalo have no restrictions. For every mass shooting, the gun lobby pushes harder to keep guns and gun rights in the forefront of the legislative sessions. They've effectively rewritten the script about guns in the United States, and it's exhausting. It's deflating. The NRA, one of the strongest organizations and one of the strongest lobbies in the United States, claims over 5 million members, is right now meeting in Houston, just miles away from Uvalde. And they state, quote, that people attending the gun show would reflect on the Uvalde school shooting, pray for the victims, recognize our patriotic members, and pledge to redouble our commitment to making our schools secure. Friends, it would be so easy to throw up our hands in defeat. It feels a little bit like we're in the wilderness, like the Israelites, that we're stuck. And I'm reminded of a reading in our Siddur, the one before Michamocha. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to get to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Reducing gun violence in America will continue to be heartrending, tedious, and slow. Rabbi Tarfon, who writes in Pirkei Avot, a Mishnah, gives us an important reminder. It is not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it. We don't have to finish the work, but we can't walk away. Rabbi Shmuley Yanklowitz wrote about this verse. And to be sure, the fact that injustice continues to fester shows that the work to improve the world can never cease. You may have seen a viral video of basketball coach Steve Kerr, who refused to discuss basketball after a game, but instead spoke of pending legislation. That legislation is the Bipartisan Background Check Act of 2021. It's really much easier to call it H.R. 8, which has passed the House of Representatives and is now pending a vote in the Senate. This is important legislation. This is the work we can do. Current federal law holds that a gun sold by an unlicensed firearms dealer online, at a gun show, or through a private sale does not require a federal background check. Passing H.R. 8 will mean that those wishing to purchase a gun online or at a gun show would have to pass a background check. States with background checks on all handgun purchases have seen a 35% decrease in gun deaths per capita. this is important legislation. Please call and email our senators, both Sherrod Brown and Rob Portman. Ask them to support H.R. 8, also known as S.R. 520, S529. Let them know why it's important to you. Ask your family and friends to do so too. There are 44 candles in our foyer. There are 21 empty chairs on our tree lawn. So many worlds have been lost. Rabbi Tarfon said, "It is not your duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it." Tonight, my friends, we join hands and we march forward together. Shabbat Shalom. Should we say a bit about that piece? Because it's pretty great.
Well, you introduced it during the sermon.
I did.
A little bit. So, Lo alecha hamlacha ligmor. It is, I don't have the words in
It is
front of
not
me.
your
It's
duty to complete the work, but neither are you free to desist from it.
Yes. Well
So
said.
that was the line that I used in the sermon in Hebrew. And a personal note, that is one of the first songs I learned in religious school, growing up as a young child.
I think it was one of mine too, as well. Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful song. We turn now to Aleinu, which can be found on page 283. We rise in body or in spirit. Let us adore the ever-living God and render praise unto you, who spreads out the heavens and established the earth. whose glory is revealed in the heavens above, and whose greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else.
ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. We turn now to our time of remembering. Our memorial meditation can be found on page 291. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were and company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our losses. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one, whose life now ended, brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone, and every life finds purpose. On this Shabbat, we remember those taken most recently from our temple family. We remember in Shiva, Ida Rose Luntz, and marking Shloshim the first month during the first month since their death, Nancy Grunsweig, Ursula Malecki. And we remember the yahrzeits, the anniversaries of death that fall on this Shabbat: Philip M. Bertman, Betty G. Braff, Gary B. Curtis, Harold M. Eisenberg, Celia Miller Frank, Dorothy Selman Gans, Philip S. Goldberg, Betty Stoddard Goldsmith, Edward N. Grossman, Mildred F. Hollander, Meyer C. Jaffe, Helene B. Jonas, Edward M. Katz, Maurice B. Krantz, Samuel Levy, Shepard S. Litt, Nadine Nikki McKinnon, Harry Miller, Marjorie Feldman Naguski, Shael Newmark, Harlan Hal Nat Plen, Samuel Rice, Louis Rosenberg, Fred Schmidt, Arthur A. Stone. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled as we turn to page 294 for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. We rise in body or in spirit. Yit Gadal, V'yit Kadash, Shemei Rabbah, V'yama Divra Hirute, V'yamlich Malchute, B'chayechon V'yomechon, Uv'chaye Dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala Uv'izman Kari, V'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Almei Almaya, Yit Barach V'yish Tabach V'yit Pa'ar V'yit Romam V'yit Naseh, V'yit Hadar V'yit Haleh V'yit Halal Shemei Dekudusha Berechu, La'elam Min Kol Birchata V'shirata, Tush B'chata V'nechamata, Da'amiran B'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav, Huya Aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'imru Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn, and give comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say together, Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. My pleasure to invite Susan Merdler to come forward to offer some words of announcements and greeting.
Shabbat Shalom. We are so very grateful to have wonderful, wonderful, beautiful leadership in our community. So I thank Rabbi Van and Deb Rogers for the service and the thought-provoking words this evening. We are also grateful for those who make our Shabbat experience wonderful each and every week through our dedicated staff here at Suburban Temple Kol Ami, our volunteers, and our leadership. So I thank you, Jacob, Noreen, and Leslie, for your words of welcome. And let us not forget, June is just around the corner, so we have a variety of opportunities for you to participate in. Our first one, Pride is not a moment, but a movement. If you're interested in joining us for the march, which is on June 4th, please let Rabbi Van know so she can tell you where to be and at what time. Also, coming up June 10th, is our Pride Shabbat. Rabbi is the one to let you in on all the information on that as well. For the young ones and their parents, we have a Rise and Shine Shabbat on Saturday, June 11th from 10:30 to 11:30 at Horseshoe Lake Pavilion. We have a study, sing, and eat cheesecake. Don't want to miss it. Rabbi Van is the key person on this one too, as she is kind enough to opening her home for us to celebrate Shavuot, study, and sing. And did I mention eat cheesecake? And we're very glad to see everybody, be it on Zoom land or here in person. And we will attempt to have our services outside, weather permitting. So we hope that we can be outside as many times as possible. If not, we'll be inside here. And we are complying with the CDC guidelines for mask requirements. And you'll know what it is when you arrive, as the sign will be on the front door. When we're outside, it's up to you whether you want to wear or not wear a mask, whatever you're comfortable with. Our vaccination policy, of course, is still ongoing, so keep that in mind. Also ongoing, we have our gatherings coming up, whether you want to hike, whether you want to visit farmers markets, or do yoga outside all summer long. I encourage you to look at the different things on our website and register, and please do so before May 31st. Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. We need to turn to our closing song, which is Adon Olam, found on page 321. Deb, what melody are we going to do?
Well, speaking of things we learned growing up, this is one of the ones that I grew up with. This is by Garovich. So join me if you know it. Adon Olam Asher Malach B'terem Kol Yetzir Nivra Le'et Nasa B'chefzo Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'acharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Hove Ve'hu Yiyeh Betifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'ein Sheni Lehamshilo Lehachbira Beli Reshit Beli Tachlit Ve'lo Haoz Ve'hamisra Ve'hu Eli Ve'chai Goali Ve'tzur Chefli Be'etzara Ve'hu Nisi Humanosli Menat Kosi Ve'yom Ekra Ve'yado Afkid Ruchi Ve'eti Shan Ve'ayira Ve'im Ruchi Geviati Adonai Li velo ira.
Let's rise for our benediction.
Yevarechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha.
May God bless you and keep you.
Yair Adonai panav elecha vichuneka.
May the light of God's presence shine upon you and be gracious to you.
Yisa Adonai panav elecha. Me'asem lecha shalom, ve'yasem lecha shalom.
May God lift up each one of us, and may God bring us shalom, peace, and wholeness.
Let's say a motzi. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz. We give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rise in song together as our prayer is humbly said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen. B'teavon.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
There's challah available in the foyer, lobby, something. Tree lawn.